Hey everyone, I'm so excited because today I'm sharing some of my absolutely favorite books that I've ever read. Some of them are books that I've read over the years and others are books that I've read over and over again every single year. And there's many reasons that I love them, but I'm going to go through each one and tell you a little bit about them and also why you should read them and why I read them too. You can finally pre-order my book Joyful using the link in the description. I am so excited to share it with you all. It has everything from delicious plant-based recipes to education on how spices can heal your body, meditation tips, basically everything you need to make your life a little bit more joyful. So please go ahead and pre-order now, and I cannot wait for you to have it. I'm so grateful for another day. Hey everyone, this video is sponsored by Sun Warrior. I have really been trying to focus on getting enough protein into my body lately, and I've been so much more conscious about how much I'm actually receiving from the food that I eat. I started using Sun Warrior a good few months ago. I used their collagen building protein peptides, and the ingredients are just so clean, the flavors are so delicious, and it's made it so much easier to hit my protein goals every single day. I literally just blend it up with some almond milk, and sometimes I pour it over some ice for a midday pick-me-up or a midday afternoon treat. There are plenty of flavors to choose from. I like changing up every week, and today I actually had the chocolate fudge flavor and it was really yummy. The powders are packed with protein, but also they have plant-based biotin, vitamins, minerals, superfoods, and hyaluronic acid that all support your skin, hair, and nails too. If you want to try them out, I'm going to leave a link to them in the caption below, and you can use my code RADHI to get 15% off your order. I'm going to start off with number one, which is The Journey Home. So I feel like every single time I'm probably going to say, this is my favorite book, so be ready for that, because each of them are my favorite in so many different ways. But I'm going to start off with the first book, which is The Journey Home by RADHANATH Swami. So this book is the autobiography of RADHANATH Swami. He is one of my spiritual teachers. I have known him for maybe like 10 years or more. He's someone who has guided me so much in life, and I actually, before even meeting him in person, had been listening to a lot of his lectures, but also had read this book. And so I felt reading it built such a deep connection with him before I had even met him. And the book is actually all about his life from when he was younger, in around the 1960s or early 1970s. He was born and raised in Chicago, and he decided to take a trip with his friends into I think Europe for just a summer vacation before they were going to come back and study. Now, he was born during the civil rights movement. He used to take part in all the protests, and he was really saddened by what was going on, and he started questioning life. And so when he was taking this trip, during the trip, he actually ended up having a strong calling to go to India. And that calling got stronger and stronger to the point where he decided he wasn't going to go back home, and he was going to follow that calling. And the whole book is his journey from Europe all the way to India. And this is him going on this venture with pretty much zero money in his pocket, but extreme determination. And it takes you through all the countries he goes through, from Turkey to Afghanistan to the Himalayas. There's just so many places he goes to. And on that journey, he explores different religions, different spiritual cultures. He goes into caves. He nearly dies quite a few times. He has near-death experiences, just so many things which will cause every emotion that you could possibly go through. You feel sad, you feel extreme happiness, you feel mystery, you feel wonder, and you feel this serious sense of contentment throughout the whole thing, because you feel like this journey is ending somewhere incredible, and it does. So I don't want to spoil much more of it for you. It's a book that I have given to people of all ages, in different parts of their life, different cultures, different traditions, and every single person that has received it feels like they've received a gift in so many more ways than just the book. So why should you read it? That's a really good question. For me, it took me on a journey of my own life while he was going through his. Like, I felt I learned so much about myself as I was reading through it. And I feel like the books that I'm generally attracted to are the ones that make me think in a different way, that give me a different perspective, or that help me to grow in areas of my life that I didn't even realize I needed to grow in. The questions that he ends up asking himself through his journey that he goes through are actually questions that we all need to be asking ourselves. And so it really gives you a time to reflect on everything you're going through, how to improve your life. And also, I feel we all have a time in our life where we just suddenly think, why am I here? Like, what is the reason for why I'm here? And everybody goes through that, whether it's in a place of trauma, whether it's in a place of crisis, or whether we just suddenly get to our desk one day and we're like, what am I even doing? And that's exactly the journey he went through. And so I think it's for anybody who either feels lost in life, feels like they are trying to figure out what path they're on, or someone who's spiritually seeking, like someone who's really trying to figure out what is the spiritual path that is going to be the best for me. And the one thing I absolutely love about him is that he learned so much about each religion as he went through it, and he still to this day values each religion so deeply for what it has given him. For me, when I think about a spiritual person or someone who is guiding me in that way, I don't think of someone who criticizes other religions. I don't think of someone who puts other spiritual practices down. I really do think it's someone who appreciates and values every single path that exists and knows that they can learn something from every single person. And that's exactly who he is. I can speak about this all day because I love him so much. He's one of the most special people in my life, but I'm going to leave you with this so you can experience him through his book. The second book I want to share with you is called Spiritual Warrior 2 by BHAKTIVEDANTA SWAMI. So, BHAKTIVEDANTA SWAMI, funnily enough, is actually one of Radhanath Swami's bestest friends. He's unfortunately no longer with us in this world, but he has left a legacy of incredible books that have just transformed my life. Every single book has transformed my life that I'm sharing with you. So this one also has done the same. And actually, Spiritual Warrior is a series of books based on different topics. And BHAKTIVEDANTA SWAMI was actually a Princeton graduate. He wasn't always called BHAKTIVEDANTA SWAMI. That's his Swami name, or his spiritual teacher name. But he was a graduate from Princeton. He specialized in human relations and behavior. And he very quickly became a spiritual guide because of just how special he was. One thing that I really loved about the book is that we are often very limiting with our love. We kind of only share our love with the people that we are close to, our partner, our friends, our family. And BHAKTIVEDANTA SWAMI really talks about how love is a universal principle. It's the one thing that can unite all of us together. And so we shouldn't be limiting our love. It's something that we should be giving to everybody with our soul-to-soul connection. It's not just about this person or the person that we know. We can actually share love with everybody. And so he covers everything from love with others, love within, and also your love for God, and how to maximize the capacity that you are able to love everyone and everything. It's just so fascinating. It's probably one of the books out of all of the ones I'm telling you that I've read over and over again. Like every year I can pick it up and I'm learning something new that I didn't relate to the first time I read it. It is just amazing. Why should you read this book? I think every single person needs to read this book because I think we're all quite lost in the definition between love and lust. I think we live a lot in lust. And again, lust is not something, which is something I learned from this book. It's not just to do with relationships or to do with sex or to do with your attraction to someone. We can lust after things. We're lusting after money. We're lusting after food. We can lust after so many different things in our life, and that essentially means our want to just use it and abuse it rather than love, which is to serve and to give. And so I think the definitions are so confused in our world right now that it's something where once I learned about it, it infused all my relationships with depth. It created a sense of wanting to give rather than take from others. And I think if everybody lived from that point of view, where I'm getting into this relationship apart with a partner, or I'm starting this friendship not to take from you but to give from you. Imagine a whole world where everyone was just wanting to give rather than receive. I think that's why it's just such a powerful book, because I think it could change not only your relationship but your whole community, and then that can kind of radiate through to other people also. I wanted to read you something. Someone left a review about the book and I thought it really summarizes it really beautifully. And he says, "May this book help you master the seductive illusions of lust and become a spiritual warrior, radiating divine love to all you encounter. And to be honest, I've never highlighted so many parts in a book as I have in this one. Definitely give this book a go. I think it can be transforming to your heart. If you ever find yourself having all these existential questions like, what is the purpose of life? What should I be doing right now? What's on other planets? The next book I want to share with you is basically a book that all these other books are loosely based around. It's where a lot of the authors have got their inspiration from. It's a book that I've actually had with me known about since I was pretty much born. My mum was reading it while I was in her belly. My grandma has read it. It's a book that has lived through my family, and it's actually known as the most ancient text that exists. So I've got different versions of the book to share with you. There are lots and lots of different editions of the book. The one that I have read and is the most popular version, which is the Bhagavad-gita as it is. It's a commentary and translation by a spiritual teacher and guide who is the spiritual teacher and guide of Radhanath Swami and Bhakti-tirtha Swami. So what you're seeing a bit of a thread here. But his name is A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. He brought so much of the Vedic culture and spiritual texts from India to the Western world. He brought them over to America, where he again had basically no money in his pocket. He didn't even speak English. And he came over with just the pure desire to share what was in these Vedic scriptures with the world, because he felt like it could just transform their hearts and give them a purpose and meaning to life. And so that was his whole, in his 70s, he did this trip across the ocean. He had heart attacks along the way. He was extremely ill along the way. He had such an incredible journey all the way, but purely for selfless reasons, just to share this with the world. It's a very, very special book. So the Bhagavad Gita is known worldwide as being a Hindu text, but actually, this is the interesting fact. The word Hindu doesn't actually describe a religion. Back in the day, the way that it says that the word Hindu came about was there was the Indus River, and they saw people across the Indus River who were Indians like me, and they decided to call them Hindus, people being across the Indus River, so it's Indus. And so when Hindu is used, it's actually not a religion, it's more just a name that was given to people who lived in a specific space. That then somehow evolved into becoming the name of the religion followed in India, or one of the religions followed in India. But actually, these texts, the Bhagavad Gita, comes from the Vedas, which is Vedic text. And after reading it, I grew up being Hindu. And now that I've read it, I've realized that I wouldn't even necessarily say that I am Hindu. I think that the Bhagavad Gita is something which is so universal. It's not bound to a religion. It's actually not bound to anything. Within the book, it even says, abandon all religions and just surrender. Surrender to your soul, surrender to the Supreme. And so I like to debunk that, because I really don't think that it is limited to being Indian or being Hindu or being of a specific culture. It is just principles of the soul, and that's exactly what it shares. And so the book is very interesting. It's all about a battle, and it starts off with a conversation between God and Arjun, who is a warrior. The whole conversation takes place on a battlefield. And you might wonder, how does this even relate to me? What am I going to learn about someone 5,000 years ago being on a battlefield, talking to God when he's a warrior? I can't relate to that at all. But actually, if you think about it, our life is a battlefield, and it compares it to that. It says that our life is actually a battlefield, and whether you are on a battlefield or whether you are in this life right now, we all go through this sudden crisis. And what you'll see is Arjun, the warrior, he asks God all these questions. God in the Bhagavad Gita is referred to as Krishna. And Krishna means all attractive. So it's just another word for God, as we have in so many different religions and in different languages. And so the whole conversation throughout the book is between Arjun and Krishna. And Arjun is going through different crises, being on the battlefield, deciding whether he should, for example, kill his cousin who is against him, or so many different things. And actually, as you go through the book, what you realize is, even though his situation feels so unrelatable, we go through all of that in our lives in different ways. And so he asks all these questions that we have in our lives, and Krishna gives these beautiful answers that help us to unfold and reveal the answers from within. This is the original. So the Bhagavad Gita as it is the original text that you can study in. And the book is actually written in Sanskrit with English translations. And then there are lots of different commentaries given, and the commentaries actually give the author's perspective, but also take into account different scriptures that are supportive texts that they are translating and kind of summarizing for you. Now, I'll be honest, when I first tried to pick up the Bhagavad Gita, just as this book as it was, I found it quite difficult to extract meaning from it. I found it difficult to relate it to my life. I found it difficult to understand the Sanskrit and all the different analogies that were used. And of course, it's a book that was written so long ago, so some of the language is a bit difficult to use. And one of the books that I wanted to talk about is the first book that my mum actually gave me when I went to university. And it's actually called Talks Between the Soul and God. It's by Rancho Prime. I don't have it with me. This is a picture of it right here. And you can buy it online, you can buy it on Amazon. There's lots of places that you can get it. So the Bhagavad Gita is actually part of a huge epic called Mahabharata. Now, all you need to know is that there is a warrior called Arjun, and then there is God, and they are on the battlefield, and they are having the deepest conversation that you possibly could have about life in the middle of war. But he actually wrote this book for his children. He had studied the Bhagavad Gita and he loved it so much, but he realized that it was a little bit difficult for his children to understand. And so what he did was he digested it. He digested it internally in his mind, and he created a book which makes the Bhagavad Gita a little bit easier to understand, to apply to your life, to really go through and kind of takes out the complexities of it and simplifies it into something easy. And so I really love that about that book. And that's the book that my mum gave me when I went to uni, and she said, whenever you're lost, you can open up any page in this book and you will find an answer. Another time I was like, haha, sure. And it sat on my bookshelf for at least the first year. And then eventually I started going through those motions and those feelings of feeling a little bit lost and a little bit not understood, and felt like I wasn't finding what I thought I would. I thought I would find so much excitement and so much joy when I went to university, and I thought it was going to be so much fun, but I felt very misunderstood when I went there, and I didn't feel like I was connecting to people. And so I ended up reading this book, and it really did give me so much solace. And I did exactly that. Whenever I felt something, I opened it up, and I still do that. Whenever I feel a certain way, I'll open up the book and it will just give me something that I need in that moment. It has a bit of a mystical, magical power in that way. The Rancho Prime version that I'm telling you, I would say start with that. It's a great introductory book to get you into the Bhagavad Gita before you even read the original. If you want to dive into the original, do it, because you can read it over and over again as life goes on, and it will give you something different each time. But I would say start with the Rancho Prime version. And then the second book I wanted to share with you is by someone called SUTAPA. And he actually wrote this book called, I think it's called Gita 3. Now, I love this book. And the reason I do is it's almost like a journal that takes you through these different exercises whilst also explaining the Gita to you in very simple language. But in each chapter, he gives you exercises to go through, questions to ask yourself. And so he's taken this philosophy, but he's made it so that we're actually reflecting. You're actually thinking about what you're learning. You're actually thinking about how you can apply this knowledge into your life in this very moment. And for me, that was the biggest change. Like, I had actually read the Bhagavad Gita a few times and gone through studying it as part of a course before I read this version. And even once I read this version and I went through the exercises, I was like, I did not learn what I was supposed to learn when I read it the first time or studied it. This is a great way to, again, another option for introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, but even more so to take you through so much growth. Like, I honestly felt quite uncomfortable when I was doing these exercises, because it brought about so many things about myself that I was kind of hiding in a corner and that I didn't want to address, or that I didn't really want to know about myself. And I find writing things down is a really good indication of knowing yourself. And even more than that, it's like when you actually put pen to paper and you have to write about things that are going through your mind or that you feel, it's almost a scary thing, because you're finally admitting something. Like, you're finally releasing these things that are inside of you onto paper, and it's solidifying it. And so this book kind of brings a mirror to your face of like who you are and what you need to work on. And at some point in life, we all have to do that, and let this be the time, because the later we do it, the harder it gets. I read this description and I thought it was so perfectly said, better than I could probably say it. So I thought I would read it to you. It says that it's ancient wisdom, eternally relevant. The Bhagavad Gita is not just a spare wheel that we call upon in times of trouble, but rather the steering wheel which we tightly grip to guide the journey of our life. a journey which we hope will bring us to true happiness. Definitely something that I've used as a guidebook to life and has never failed me whenever I've turned to it. It also covers so many different types of methods of how you can connect yourself. So in different versions of yoga. And what I love is that it gives all these different options. It's like, you know, there's not one path for everyone. That can't be possible. We're all so unique and so different. And so what it does is it says, okay, if you love doing this, you can channel that energy and you can connect to God in this way. Or if you love doing this, there are just so many different versions and so many different paths that you can take that can lead you in the same way. And so I love that because we are so different and we are so unique. And if someone said that I had to do the same thing as every single other person in the world, it just wouldn't feel right because we all have different personalities and different ways that we love to live. And so I just love that it gives options in that way. The last book I wanted to tell you about related to the Bhagavad-gita, which is another supportive book that helps you to understand it, is this book full of acronyms by SUTAPA. And I'm going to leave all the links to all of the books down below, so don't worry, you will find all of them. But it's essentially like this thick and it's like this big, and it has all the different chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, and it summarizes it in one acronym for each chapter. Super succinct, super simple, and really easy to understand. The reason I've given you all of these options is because I actually, when I wanted to really study the Bhagavad Gita deeply, I started going to courses. Now, there are also lots of courses in different parts of the world that you wouldn't even realize exist. Online courses, in-person courses, that actually you can go, be with a community, be with other people that also have that same desire to study it, and you can study it together over different weeks. And I did that. I think every week we studied a different chapter. And actually, my teacher was Jay Shetty when he was a monk. Weird, I know. But back in the day when I wanted to study and he was training as a monk, he was actually the teacher that was teaching this course. And so I actually first studied the Bhagavad Gita properly through one of his courses, which was pretty cool. And he was a great teacher. Surprise, surprise. So why should you read this book? Because of everything that I've just possibly said, of course, but also because I really do believe in the quote, something about if you want to learn something new, read an old book. I think that's the quote. I do think that all the old wisdom that we've kind of forgotten is like the secret key to living a happy, successful, healthy life, whether it's to do with health tips, understanding ourselves better, or connecting to God. It's like everything that actually works seems to come from somewhere old. And if there's a possibility that this one book can change your life in some way, then give a few hours to it. Like, just flick through it, see what connects to you. You don't have to read the whole thing. But why give something, why miss out on something that could have the potential to do all of this for you? It just makes no sense. So that is why you should read the Bhagavad Gita and all these other books related to it. Look, that's Arjun, the warrior, in the middle of the battlefield with all these people about to like kill him. And then that's Krishna that's riding the chariot, which is symbolic. And these are the horses which just represent things, and just amazing, everything about it. So this is the big version. And then I have this little pocket version that I carry around with me whenever I want to travel and I just want to read. I try to read a little bit from it every day. And so I carry around this little one, and it's just a little pocket book that I can just carry everywhere with me. Next up, we have a short and sweet one. This is Eating Animals by Jonathan Safran. Okay, so the reason I actually put this book in my top 5, I haven't actually read it a very long time. And by a long time, I mean like over 10 years. That's because it's actually the book that I read that turned me vegan. Yay! My sister actually read it first, and I was the type of person, and still am, that anything my sister did, I wanted to do too. So my sister read this book and she was like, I'm officially vegan, to my mom. And then I was like, I'm vegan too. She was like, you don't even know why you're vegan. And I was like, well, I will, because then I read that book and then I realized why I wanted to be vegan. Again, just want to say that that book not only made me vegan, it had a knock-on effect. It made my dad vegan, my mom vegan. My husband is vegan, my brother-in-law is vegan, and my niece and nephew are vegan. So you can see why this book, from this one book that my sister read, it created a lifeline of vegans in the making. So it was actually pretty powerful. And what I remember about the book, and when I was even looking it up again just to refresh my mind on it, it's all about factory farming. So the reason I like it is because I personally, even being a very, very strict vegan and very passionate about it, don't really love when anything is forced or when things are shared where you're trying to scare people or make them feel bad about their life or tell them that they're terrible humans for eating meat. I'm just not that person. And neither is he. And that's why I liked it, because there's no judgment in it. It's really just educating. It's sharing all the information about what happens during factory farming, what happens to the animals, everything that leads up to, you know, it getting to your table. And you might ask, why should I read this if I'm not even thinking about being a vegan and I want to eat meat for the rest of my life? It's not something I'm into. The reason I would say it's good for everybody, even if you're not thinking about becoming a vegan or becoming more plant-based, is because I believe in making informed decisions. I think you should do everything that you want to do if you fully understand why you're doing it. I just spat there, but I really meant it, okay? If you understand why you're doing it, if you can read that whole book, if you can watch all the documentaries, that is the lead up to the food being on your plate. And I mean that with vegetables, I mean that with spices, I mean that with everything, knowing the cruelty that goes behind even farming and how little the farmers are paid and, you know, all of that and the harm that comes to the animals. If you're able to digest all of that when you're eating the food that you are eating, by all means, that's what we should do. But I think a lot of the time we grow up in an environment where we are given these foods. There are so many children that have no idea that the piece of meat that's on their plate actually comes from a live chicken or a live cow or whatever animal it's come from. And then when they see that relationship, they get so upset because they had no idea. I think it's all about making informed decisions. And I think that's all it is. Educating yourself on the things you're doing in your life and the harm that it could be causing, and also the harm that it could be doing to your own body because of what the animals are going through. I think if you're able to do all of that and then make your decision, it feels like more of a solid decision, you know? And so that's why you should read the book. It's for anyone and everyone, not just if you're vegan, not just if you love animals, but just so that you're a human that's making a choice that is based on solid fact, you know? And lastly, but not leastly, we have my final book, which is Divya Alters What to Eat for How You Feel. And the reason I want to share that is because Divya Alter is actually my first Ayurvedic teacher. When I moved to New York, I started actually even getting an interest in Ayurveda after meeting her. She has this amazing Ayurvedic restaurant in New York. She also has a cooking workshop and a cooking studio where she teaches people. And so at that time I was struggling to figure out what I wanted to do in life, and I was like, listen, I will do whatever you want me to do. I'll just follow you around. I just want to learn from you. And so I kind of became her little assistant on the side and learned about Ayurvedic cooking and the medicinal properties of spices, and it really was the start point of my interest and love for Ayurveda. And so she actually created this book, and the book has lots of incredible, simple recipes that feel so nourishing. Like when you go to a restaurant, they are simple flavors, very subtle, but when you come out of there, you feel so good after eating them. And that's what each and every recipe in that book is. The recipes are so thought out. They really are created to create satisfaction and joy, but also comfort in your stomach. And so that's what I love about them. They're really simple ingredients in there too, but she also intertwines a lot of Ayurveda into it. And so you get to learn, if it's your introduction to Ayurveda, it's a beautiful way to start learning through food and the way that it relates to your body. Why should you read this book? Well, if you want to try out some delicious vegetarian and vegan recipes, then this is the place for you. But also because I don't know whether she told me this or I read it in another Ayurvedic thing, but it says it's not what you eat, it's how you eat it. And that's actually the essence of Ayurveda. It's not what you eat, it's about the quantities that you're eating of it, or how you're combining it, or what spices you're using with it to help digest it. There's just so many intricacies to how we eat that can actually optimize our ability to digest, our ability to extract the nutrients. And she really helps to break that down in this book. And so it's an education not just about food, but about your own body as well and how your body relates to food. That's why you should read it. And I obviously could not do my favorite books without highlighting these other two, but honestly I had top 5. I didn't want to seem like I was being biased, but Jay Shetty, this human called Jay Shetty, has 2 books. 8 Rules of Love, which is an amazing book about love, and honestly I'm still making my way through it, but I was there while he was writing it, and I know that the content is incredible and amazing and fantastic. And it really does cover not just topics to do with love in a relationship, but also love in the world and with other people. And everything in this book, from what I have read, is something that can not just help me with my relationship with him, but also with my mom, my dad, my sister, how to connect to people deeply, how to actually understand them, how to listen to them and actually hear what they're saying, and how to love them how they want to be loved versus how you want to be loved. Obviously, check out this book and buy it. And then the second book of his, which I'm sure you all know, is Think Like a Monk, or in Spanish, Pensa como un Monge, think like a monk. I haven't read it in this language, but I have read it. All I can say is, I'm not even going to talk about what's in the book, but what I will say is he is one human that from the moment I met him, which was over, I don't even know, since 2012, from being a monk to being a teacher to being who he is now, he has been exactly the same human throughout. And he has never ever changed in his integrity, in his values, in the person that he is, in the person that he shows up to be online, in the person that he is to his friends. And so I think he lives with so much integrity, and what he shares is what he lives. And for that reason, even if he wasn't my husband, I would say to read it, because to read a book by somebody like that, he just loves to help people. Like, he really does. He wants to help people find their purpose. That's his mission in life, and he always comes back to that in whatever he's doing. And that's exactly what Think Like a Monk was created to be. He teaches me something every single day. Annoyingly, he's actually really smart. Reading a book by him is just amazing. So my bonus books, Think Like a Monk and 8 Rules of Love. And not because he asked me to do it, or because I'm forced to do it in any capacity, or because I'm paid. All right, kids, I've given you plenty to read. This is at least a couple months worth of reading. I actually did think about starting a book club, but then I was scared I wouldn't be able to commit to it myself and finish the book, so I didn't. But if you want me to, let me know in the comments. It might be something really fun to do, to read books together and discuss them and talk about them. But I hope that these books give you as much joy and transformation and change in your life as they have for me. They have been instrumental in honestly feeling fulfilled in life. And so I really hope they do the same for you. Let me know in the comments if you do read them, or any other books that you love that have changed your life. I would love to hear about that too. Sending you all so much love, and thank you all so much for watching. Giving you all a big cyber hug.